Okay, anyway, let me just make that smaller. What the hell? Alright, so I moved that out of the way. And okay. So anyway, going back to regarding the subsurface. So like for example, the teeth, it has subsurface, right? Oh, I'm getting annoyed right now. Right, so here it is, right? You see that? Very, very cool, you see? And over here, which is different from this. And anyway, the ice cream, they also have subsurface that's soft, you know, where it wraps around, right? Over here, the teeth, going back to here. The teeth has more reflectivity, so it looks different. And so let me grab the teeth, subsurface. So I clicked on the shader for it, which now I have the attribute editor settings for the teeth shader. Right, subsurface. If you notice, for the teeth, the subsurface, the weight, which means the strength of it, is at 1, which means 100%. Okay. So for example, this here, your standard surface 1, that's your default R-node shader, right? It's the same one as all of these, right? Standard surface, the same as this, not the Lambert. Lambert is the old school Maya shader, but everything else that I made is basically the same as this, standard surface. And if you notice for the standard surface, that under subsurface, the weight is at 0. So let me just hide everything else. Subsurface, weight, which means the strength of it is at 0, right? That's a default. And the teeth, right, the strength is at 100, meaning 1, the weight. They should just name that strength, you know, or value, or something else than weight. And when we hear weight, we think of physically the weight of something. That's what it confused me when I was learning. But just like I said, think of weight as the strength of it, or the value of it, of the subsurface. And I want to get rid of this. Is annoying me. It's confusing me. It says your cone shader, but that's not what I'm even talking about. Let me just press the little stars. Get out of here. So the T shader, subsurface, you crank it to 100, right? Or weight at 1, which means 100, right? And then that'll make it like this. Okay. You know what? I'm gonna do a render on it, right? I'm gonna do a render. Where first render I'm gonna set the weight to 0, okay? And you'll see the difference. So I'll be right back. Alright, so I'm back. Now this is right here with the subsurface at nothing. Okay, this is the teeth shader. Subsurface is at nothing. You see it's boring. It looks like clay. You know, it looks like clay. And even if my specular, which means its shininess, right? The weight is at 1, which means 100% value for my specular, meaning my shine. And that this specular means shine, but it also means reflectivity. Okay, it also means reflectivity. So that's why that can also confuse you. Specular, what do you mean specular? You don't usually use the word specular in real life. So like I said, specular is like the shine, you know, you see that highlight right here? But it also means it's reflectivity, right? So like I said, weight is at 1, so 100% strength, but the roughness is at 0.35, so it's kind of fuzzy in terms of the reflectivity, right? That's why it kind of looks like this. It's boring, right? So I'm gonna save it. I'm gonna get this one, the one I made just now. I'm going to delete it. Okay. And for the let me turn off interactive rendering. Interactive rendering, turn it off. And now I'll just do a quick showcase where the teeth under its subsurface, let's say I set it to half, right, around half. And you see all these little extra dials, they light up, right, before, grayed out, and if I crank it to half, they all come to life, right? So ignore all this other stuff. So I just set the strength to half. I'm gonna do a render now. I'll be right back. Alright, so here's my render. Okay, I'm gonna save it, which is down here, the camera icon. So here's before, after, and this is only at half strength. So before, see all that dark crevices, right? Dark, no light is penetrating, right? It's dark because none of the ambient lighting and none of the key lighting is penetrating through these crevices, right? Because the shader, right, that makes up this material is blocking out light. But when you have subsurface on, even at half value, this is what happens. Light starts to penetrate through the shader, and that means also light penetrates through the material, not the material, but the geometry, the mesh, the wire mesh. Light will penetrate through it because of the shader. See here? See that glistening? Before, after. Alright? Before, completely dark inside, after. It illuminates it. See? That's how you get that nice cool look. And so I save that. If I do another render, which the hotkey again is Control U, is the hotkey to do a render. And the other thing too is, let's say the computer takes some time to render, right? What you could do is click here, right? What that does is it activates a little drag box where from here, anywhere here, I only want to render here, so I'm just going to drag like that. You see this? Left click and drag. Now it will only render in here, which will save you time, and because you only need to render in here, and the computer needs to process only inside, none of the outside. That'll save you a ton of time for test renders. So that's that guy right there. So I did that. Now I need to go and dial my setting for my teeth. Here, I'm gonna set it to 1, full value. I'm gonna do a render. Okay, I'll be right back. All right, so I'm back, and here's my render. Right, I'm gonna save a snapshot. Right, that guy right there, and zoom in. Right, the middle mouse scroll. Before, half value subsurface, full value subsurface, half value, full value, right? And that took me only before it took me 20 seconds. Now it only took me 4 seconds. So it took 1/4 the time because I only rendered within this box. But for you guys, it'll probably take more seconds because the computer, while it's still a good computer, it's an older generation and nowhere near as fast as my computer at home. So, but it's still good for rendering and whatnot. That's why you get that discrepancy in time. Anyway, so that's that. And the radius, all these fancy words, and before I talk about radius, subsurface color. That's the color of your subsurface. You could change the color. You could change it to red if you want, and I'll literally change the color. You know what, fine, I'll do a render on that. I'm going to change the color of it, right? So let's change it to I don't know, like something like this, or something like a red, really obvious, real nasty color. And I'll do a render and I'll be right back. Alright, so I did that render and it literally looks like this, right? It kind of completely kills off the natural color, which is located under base, right? Base, that's your natural color. But the subsurface, if you set the color, it will override everything, you know? So you have to be very careful about your subsurface color because it will pretty much override it. Yeah. So I'm just gonna set it back to white. White. Now the radius is it's interesting. The radius is the, God, this is annoying. It's a tone, how much of a tone your subsurface has. So you know what? I'll do another test render. Whereas before it's here, okay? Now I'm gonna crank it all the way to here. Let's see what that does for us. Radius basically means the strength of the subsurface in a different way. Because this is the strength, the weight, but the radius is how much of a tone, Tone, influence it has on your object. So it's just better for me to show. I'm gonna pause the video and do a render. Alright, so as you can see, this is it. Very strange looking. Very, very strange. Almost like it's made out of a kind of like a cheap see-through plastic. You know, maybe like almost like a balloon material, you know, where you kind of see through a lot. It's not even see-through, it's, I don't know how to explain this. It's like, yeah, it's kind of like plastic, but like a, I don't know. So this is the look you get when you crank the subsurface, the radius to white. And radius doesn't mean like the color, right? Because they're showing they're showing the tone value, right? By the means of color, the tonal value. You see before, right? This was when my radius was right around here, okay? This is what I had. And this is when my radius tonal value was at 100% right here compared to this and compared to this. So this is like your, I don't know, its behavior, its look, you know. Anyhow, so you probably wanted to stay around here, maybe up to half at the most, because if you crank it, it looks weird like that, unless this is the look you want, you know. Yeah. And also the tongue has a subsurface. All of these have subsurface because I want to give that nice, interesting, you know, look. The arms don't have subsurface because it just made it look weird because it would wrap around weird and just look like a straw. Right. So this over here, this looks like a straw. You know, like how straws are transparent in a way and you kind of see through to the other side. So it kind of looks like feels and looks like a straw material, the plastic. And next I'm gonna talk about what I did for the ice cream scoops, okay, where I added subsurface. All right, so I'll be right back. All right, so here's my ice cream shader that I made, all right, and again, your hybrid shade is over here, okay. And just a quick review, to render is Control U. I recommend always pressing Control U because if you just press this button to do the render, sometimes it just goofs up. It just does something stupid sometimes when you just do the play and pressing that button. But when you do Control U, that's the, you know, hard render, meaning render right there, Control U. So I basically recommend that. Anyway, back to the chocolate shader. What I did was the subsurface. If you see, I cranked it to 1. Subsurface color, I also changed the color a bit to give that tonal value. Ignore this, that's the lens effect. And the radius, I increased the radius compared to something like the teeth because I want to give it more of a softer look, feel. You know what? It's just best for me to just show. So let's say subsurface. I'm gonna just crank it to 0, okay? And you see the render, all right? And also the specular. This is what I have for the specular. The weight is at 1. The roughness is at 0.375, okay? That's all I did. This value might be the same from before. I'm pretty sure when I had the 4th video tutorial, but I'm just gonna show you. And then I set the subsurface back to 0. Let's see what happens after I render. Oh, by the way, I need to move this, right? This my little render area. So I'm just gonna, the way you grab it is kind of annoying. It's kind of fickle, but you have to grab it by the end, okay? You gotta grab it by the end. And make sure that your interactive renderer is off. Well, for the most part, it's just better to have it off. This is just annoying little thing it does when rendering artifact. Just ignore it. So I'm gonna do it here, right? I'm just gonna do that because that's only the chocolate and like that. Okay, so basically this is how you manipulate your render box. All right, so now I'm gonna do another render where the value subsurface scatter value is at 0. All right, so here it is. All right, this is the subsurface value at 0. Okay, and here's before. When I click on this here, this is my subsurface value at 100%, and then this is my value at 0 subsurface value. So I'm just going to do a save. So before, ignore this teeth thing as well. Here's my subsurface on 100%, subsurface completely off, 0 value. Okay, so that's why I turned it on. See how it kind of illuminates the entire surface? Because subsurface means that on the surface level, you know, it's gonna, you know, give it some. It just makes it lighter. Before, after, see, kind of dead. You have it on, nice illumination. You know, I want to give it that glamour shot. And now I'm gonna show for the white ice cream. So I'm gonna go something like over here. And then I'm gonna go something like that, right, for ice cream. Just the ice cream. And again, the ice cream has its own shader. The teeth has its own shader. The tongue has its own shader. The eyeballs has its own shader, right? So I'm gonna do a render and I'll be right back. Oh, first I gotta set my ice cream, right? I named it vanilla, right? Ignore the fact that it looks gray, but it should be white. I don't know why it does this. So if you look here, here's my base, right? The regular color, specular, weight, color, roughness, right? I have my roughness kind of high, 0.45, okay? The weight is at 1. So specular weight at 1 basically means it's gonna have, you know, a white shine to it. You know, it's not gonna look dull, right? That's the only way to kind of explain it too. Not only does it influence your reflectivity, right, but also influences kind of the overall color of your shader and your material, because your reflectivity influences your color because it's absorbing the lights and surrounding ambient lighting overall, the reflectivity. Yeah, you just gotta do it on your own and you see what I mean. The weight influences so many different subtle little things about your shader, the weight of your specular. Anyway, roughness is at 0.45. I made it at almost half value because I want to get that soft, soft whiteness, and I didn't want any of that plastic or metallic shine highlight that you would see usually in bad renders. Okay, that's the reason why I put it at 0.45, and it also helps with my light effects, light bloom. Anyway, I'm gonna set my value, my subsurface, to 0, right? And let's see how the ice cream looks like. I'll be right back. Anyway, so here's my subsurface on. Okay, this is my subsurface on, and when I uncheck this, this will be my subsurface off. So I want to click it. This is my subsurface off. Okay, I'm gonna save a snapshot. Okay, you can see here this little glint highlight, right? That's kind of tells us this is kind of right here. You see that? That tells us this kind of plastic feel. Only plastics and more metallic reflective objects gives you this glint, right? See that right here? It's barely noticeable, but it's there. Okay, I don't like that. Ice cream does not give off that look, right? But here is with it gone, right? And the subsurface is on. So basically, the subsurface with it on, okay, it killed off the glint. Subsurface off, subsurface on. And if you look at the underside, it's very soft and just, nice. You see this? This gives off more illumination underneath here, right? Which, to the untrained eye, this might look nice, right? And it does, but you still get this glint. This glint is what you want to get rid of, right? Because ice cream does not have this glint. So it's a bit of a subtle trade-off where the underside gets no reflectivity. See, it has a nice. This one is the subsurface off, and you get this underside, which I kind of like. I'm not gonna lie, but I can't deal with this. So I'd rather have this, which is softer, right, and no glint. Subsurface on, subsurface off. But if you notice also, my next door neighbor, this shader, the chocolate shader, which also has subsurface, right? Watch, look up here. Before, you see here, after. So this guy, right, with the subsurface off and the reflectivity influencing the surrounding shader, makes him kind of look not that great, because I don't like this ambient reflection going on here, ambient lighting and ambient reflection. See, before, see, it's not distracting. Now it's kind of distracting. See? Anyway, so that's basically what that is. So, I had set the subsurface to 1 now, and the radius, is here. I'll show the radius at completely over here, okay? Let's see what that looks like for our ice cream, and I'll be right back. Alright, so this is the render with the subsurface turned back on, and my radius, I set it all the way to my left, okay? Which is at black, right? So this is what it looks like. You know, it looks kind of cool. And here, this snapshot is my first render with my subsurface, and the value of the radius is more around here and more of a gray color. So let's see what it was before. Okay, this is what it was before, where my radius was over here. And I'm gonna turn it off, not off, but uncheck that. See, this is what I mean by the tonal, your tone value of your subsurface. Whereas before, I mean right now, it's over here. Okay, before, see the tonal value. Actually, I kind of like this too. It's very soft. Yeah, this here was what my value before, after. You see, this one, it creeps back up, the gradation, when you have the radius way over here. The more you pull here, you know what, as a matter of fact, let me save this. So this render is my radius way over here to my left. I'm going to do another render where I'm going to put it right in the middle. Let's see what it looks like. It's best to show what it looks like. Alright, so here I am. This is my radius at half value. Okay, and I'm going to save a snapshot. Here it is. I'm going to press the left arrow to show before and after. Before, after. Before, after. See, it loses more of the tonal value. It's more flat. See, before, after. This tonal value of my subsurface is when my radius is at completely black, right? And this right here, that I just right here, is when my subsurface radius is in the middle, kind of gray. Right, see how flat it is? Okay, so that's your radius. Your scale, just the scale and the radius, they're very similar in a way. So I think maybe the scale kind of screws with it messes around with the tonal value as well. But just messing around with the weight and the radius is more than enough to keep you challenged and get the look you want. But now I'm gonna crank my radius back to where I had it around here ish, and let's see what it looks like. Alright, so here I am. So this is what it looks like now. Okay, I'm gonna do a snapshot save, right, and then I'm gonna show you what it looked like halfway tonal value, well, what I had originally set up in terms of having it here for my final beauty shot. Looks like garbage, looks nice. Looks like garbage, looks nice. And that's your radius. So overall, in this lesson regarding subsurface, you just you could crank it to 1, or you could experiment and just put half. You know, it all depends. And your subsurface is also influenced by the lighting to a certain extent to consider. All this other stuff, just leave alone, right? Leave alone the scale, leave alone the type, leave alone this, whatever this word is. Just, this has to do with the shine. Just leave it alone. Just mess with the weight, mess with the radius, and that's it. And if you really want to, you can kind of screw around with the subsurface color as well. And that's how you get that, right? You just gotta be patient, use the render box, and just do renders. And do just observe what you're doing. Don't just crank dials all over the place, because if you crank dials all over the place and don't pay attention, you're just wasting your time. So I'm basically showing you what you should do, and save yourself hours of trial and error. I'm just showing you exactly to the point what you want to mess around. Same with the tongue, okay? And let me talk about the gold shader, okay? I think now the gold shader looks a lot better from what I had before. And this this harsh brown stuff, that's just the I believe the shadow contact, I think, and also reflectivity of, it's reflecting something, I think. Right here, you see this? That's just reflecting a environment, from what I can gather. I'm not sure. Right, not 100% sure, but it looks nice. See? Anyway, and the limbs, they don't have subsurface because it just made it look ugly and stupid. Which, you know what? I'll show that right now. Why it looks ugly and stupid. I'm gonna select my render box. I'm gonna pull on it like that, okay? And then I'm gonna do a render with the subsurface on, okay? You'll see. So from here, here's my arms and legs, and this type of situation, you don't want subsurface as much. Anyway, I'll just show it. Here's my arms and legs shader, and I'm just gonna, let's say I crank it halfway, or I crank it to 1, right? My radius is at complete white, which you probably learned by now it's not the best thing, okay? Because if you make it white, it makes it look weird, like how the teeth was, like a see-through plastic straw, which we don't want. So you already learned what to avoid, so we'll bring it back around here ish, right? Let's see what this does for our arms and legs. Okay, it's a good experiment. Maybe I might like it, maybe I might not, I don't know. I'm gonna pause it and be right back. So here I am, and look what it did. Oh, it has an interesting effect. See, it starts to look like a straw, right? And if you look here, it's white because the subsurface color, it just overrided whatever brown color I had for the limbs. Okay, so you know what, maybe you can experiment. What if I put my weight down to half? Okay, let's see what that does, so you can see in real time how I experiment with shaders and values. Okay, so this is exactly how I experiment, little by little, one dial at a time. You know, last thing you want to do is mess around with the weight and also the color, also the radius, all at one time. Don't ever do that. Okay, right? This is what my supervisor taught me how to control shaders. You test render one dial at a time. That's it. At most, just listen to what I say, and you'll start making really nice renders. Okay. Or you could not listen and waste hours and hours and have your render look like garbage. So hold on. Alright, so this is my render, okay? Or the value of the weight is at half. So it's kind of interesting. And I'll do one more render where now, you know, I kind of like this. It's unassuming, okay? And maybe I'll set my color. Ooh, what is this? Oh, it gives you a presets of apple, subsurface, chicken. I've never seen this before. This is weird. But now if you just, it's so weird. Now I can just choose a color. Color picker, maybe something like a dark brown. Or no, maybe I'll just make it a little brighter like that. Something like that. Less saturated. The value go up a bit. Something like that. Something like that. Something like that. I don't know. Something like that. That's just the color of the subsurface. Okay, remember radius is not a color. It's just tone value. Right? Anyway, I'm gonna do a render. Alright, so here it is. It's interesting. Right? It's interesting. Whereas here's my initial. Okay? This is my limbs with no subsurface, okay? And then when I let go, this is with it having this type of a dialed in halfway strength subsurface, and I gave it a color, and I made a radius right around here, or the radius might have been by default over here. No, the radius, I forgot. Anyway, this is what it was. Okay, so before, after, see, it kind of gives off it allows a shader to absorb more light. See, under the shading where it's usually has shadows, right? Watch the shadow areas, right? See, darker, lighter. See, subsurface is where the surface will absorb some lighting, some lights onto its skin, right? See, kind of dead, a little bit lighter. So you can also make the weight a little bit weaker, so it's less apparent. So I kind of like that too. Yeah, kind of like that. I'm gonna save it. So here it is with the subsurface, and subsurface off, subsurface on for the limbs. So I kind of like that. Anyway, I'm gonna upload this video. This is your lesson on subsurface scatter, right? Just this, and just go to town, and apply it to all materials that you think should have a nice subsurface, like this tongue. I changed the color a bit, and I added subsurface. For example, the tongue. This is what I did. This is my little recipe for the tongue, right? And I changed the base color a bit to make it pinker, because before it was more reddish and just weird looking. Now the subsurface, I turned it on, and look at what I did to the weight. I made it weak, because I didn't want it to be, it just looked weird, right, at full value. So I dropped it down. The color, I changed the color from white to this color, right, and the radius is around here. And this is how you screw around with subsurface and make whatever you want. All right, that's the end of the lesson. It's going to be on YouTube. Bye.